Welcome to your favorite channel. Karen is suing Amy over a lasagna recipe. Yes, that's right. What may be happening could become one of the most petty and shocking legal battles in Little People Big World history. Reports say there is a document that allegedly wants to stop Amy Roloff from using her own last name in her new business.
Think about that.
Not a product name, not a brand, her own name. Insiders say Karen Chandler convinced Matt to pursue this demand. This isn't just about money. It's about legacy, history, and identity. If you thought the farm disputes were intense, this is a whole new level. They aren't just coming after Amy's business. They're coming for her memories, her story, and her name. Amy has been growing her own brand since leaving the farm. She married Chris and started her own projects, including the Roloff family cookbook. Fans have waited for this for years. The cookbook contains recipes passed down for generations, the meals we watched her make on the show, the comfort food that raised her 4 kids. The launch was huge. Amy's social media posts went viral. Pre-orders shot up fast, even crashing the website. Fans flooded the comments, excited to try Amy's famous lasagna or berry cobbler. Amy wasn't just Matt's ex or a woman who lost the farm. She was a businesswoman and an author. The engagement numbers were off the charts, and experts could tell the book would be a hit. Amy and Chris celebrated the success, but a dark cloud was forming at the Roloff mansion. Reports say the mood at the farm was tense. While fans cheered for Amy, Karen was angry. Complaints about pumpkin seasons, rental properties, and the farm's public image had been piling up, and now Amy's success only made things worse. Karen reportedly saw Amy's cookbook as a theft of agricultural resources. She argued that Amy's fame was tied to the show and the farm, so Amy was benefiting from a brand Matt developed. Rumors say Karen convinced Matt to see Amy's cookbook as a business threat. She told him the recipes Amy was selling, which became famous on the show, were actually the farm's intellectual property. The logic is that Amy was technically an employee of the farm and production company while cooking these meals on camera, so the recipes could be considered company property. It sounds crazy, but it fits the manipulative strategy insiders describe. Karen presented Amy's success as taking away from Matt's empire. This turned a personal family memoir into a corporate dispute. Matt, pressured by Karen, reportedly began reviewing old contracts and thinking about licensing and royalties. Meanwhile, Amy's social media posts were ignored by the farm. No congratulations, just silence. Behind the scenes, a cease and desist letter was being prepared. It would claim that the Roloff family cookbook violated intellectual property rights and trademark laws. This wasn't just about recipes. It was about taking away Amy's connection to the family history and making it a business asset. The letter would hit just as the book launched, maximizing pressure. Karen and Matt wanted leverage. They knew the printed inventory was already out, making it costly for Amy to make changes. The goal, according to insiders, was not court but a settlement, forcing Amy to give up part of her royalties. It was a planned attack to scare her into compliance. But Amy Roloff is not the same person she was 10 years ago. She might have given in before, but now she is stronger. The shock of receiving this legal draft is reportedly huge. The requests in the letter are extreme. They want to review every recipe, every story, and even any negative comments about the property. The goal is total control over her work and legacy. Amy is facing a battle for her name, her recipes, and her history. Karen and Matt are trying to turn her personal achievements into corporate property. But Amy's independence, confidence, and new life mean she may not back down this time. The fight is more than legal. It's about family, control, and the right to claim your own story. This legal threat marks a turning point. What was once a beloved matriarch sharing family recipes has become a target of corporate-style attacks from the people closest to her. The situation raises questions about loyalty, fairness, and how far some will go to maintain control. The story is still unfolding, and Amy's response will shape the future of her business, her family legacy, and her freedom to use her own name and recipes. Amy wanted to be in charge of her book. If this got out, fans would never forgive anyone for trying to claim her family history. That's exactly what we are showing. We are putting together the pieces that others don't want people to see. The timing wasn't a coincidence. It was planned. The reason was money. The villain here is extreme. Most of what we know comes from watching how people act over the years and rumors from the production side. Think about it. Does this sound like something Karen would do? And would Matt agree if he thought it was just business? The book launch celebration was ready. Invitations sent. Amy looked great. The courier was on the way. The papers were signed. Amy didn't know it yet, but the war had already started. We're going to go over the cease and desist letter in detail, including the legal loophole they tried to use to claim her recipes and the horrible moment Amy realized her past was being used against her future. This is when the Roloff family relationship began to break apart for good. The envelope came on a Tuesday. It wasn't a note of congratulations or a friendly letter. It was thick, had to be signed for, and changed the mood at Amy's home immediately. She was planning her book tour one moment, then holding a paper that could ruin everything the next. The language in the letter was harsh. Matt didn't send it himself. It came from the lawyers representing Roloff Farms. But the fingerprints of Matt and Karen were clear. The letter said the book title, Roloff Family Cookbook, violated the registered brand Roloff Farms. They claimed the word Roloff was linked to the farm and TV show, and that Amy was creating market confusion by using it. That was just the start. The real shock was on page 4. The letter claimed the recipes, including lasagna, meatloaf, and peach cobbler, were company intellectual property. The lawyers said these meals weren't family recipes anymore because they were made on camera and used in the show's promotions for 15 years. They argued that Amy had created assets while working on the production, so the company owned them. They demanded Amy either pay 25% of gross sales to Matt and Karen or remove the recipes entirely. This meant someone was telling Amy she didn't own her own food. The memories she made for her kids were now considered company property. Amy was shocked. It felt like a betrayal beyond divorce. They were trying to rewrite history, saying the farm made everything good, and Amy was just a vessel. This was jealousy at its most basic. If Karen couldn't be the one who made the meals, she wanted the money instead. For 48 hours, the book launch hung in the balance. The publisher was worried. Legal threats could have held the book in court for years, stopping the launch. Amy considered giving up. She just wanted to cook, not fight. Matt and Karen's tactics made her feel small, but they hadn't counted on Chris Merrick, her husband and X-factor in her life. Chris wasn't intimidated. He sells homes, reads contracts, and can spot lies. He read the letter and saw the flaw immediately. The farm's case relied on the recipes being made while filming the show. If Amy could prove they existed before the cameras and before the farm became a business, their case would collapse. Chris and Amy started digging through the past. They went to the attic, searching through boxes, photo albums, and old journals. The goal was to prove the recipes were personal, passed down through generations, not farm property. Time was short. The lawyers demanded an answer in 72 hours, or the printing would be halted. Then they found it. A small, worn tin box Amy had kept since childhood. Inside were handwritten recipe cards, old and yellowed, with grease marks and flour dust. Chris found one index card, the recipe for the lasagna. It wasn't called lasagna, it was Mom's Sunday Special, dated October 1975, written by Amy's mother. Long before Amy met Matt, before the farm was bought, and decades before cameras arrived in Oregon. This was proof. The recipe was personal and predated Roloff Farms. They also found the peach cobbler recipe in a community cookbook from Amy's hometown in Michigan, published in 1982, with her maiden name listed as the contributor. This confirmed that the farm's claim was false. Amy wasn't taking anything from the farm. The farm was trying to take her family history. Amy's sadness turned to anger. She had proof. Now she could fight back. They gave the papers to their lawyer and prepared to confront Matt's team. The investigation revealed Matt and Karen were lying, hoping Amy had no documentation, but she did. When Karen tried to claim a license fee, she found evidence that she had no rights to the family recipes. The litigation over the lasagna was about to backfire. Amy's lawyer placed the 1975 recipe card on the table. The judge's reaction, the embarrassing withdrawal of the claim, and Amy's clever use of a hidden dedication in her book turned the tables completely. Amy had won. She kept her recipes, her name, and her family history. The farm's legal attack failed, and her legacy remained in her hands. This was a victory not just for her, but for anyone who values personal history over corporate control. Amy's victory over the lasagna lawsuit marked a turning point, not just for her, but for the entire narrative surrounding Roloff Farms. She had fought off the legal attack and preserved her family's legacy, but the aftermath of the conflict was about to reveal just how deep the cracks ran in the Roloff family dynamic. While Amy celebrated her triumph, the others at the farm were left scrambling to maintain control over what they believed was theirs. Matt and Karen were reportedly stunned. Their plan, which relied on fear, intimidation, and clever manipulation of timelines and documentation, had failed in spectacular fashion. They had assumed that Amy, faced with legal paperwork and deadlines, would feel powerless and comply. They hadn't counted on Chris Merrick's expertise or Amy's determination. The fallout left the farm's management team, and possibly Matt himself, questioning the reliability of their own strategies. It's important to note that, behind the scenes, the farm's reputation had already taken a hit. Public sympathy had shifted. Fans, who had once been intrigued by the drama surrounding the farm's business and family disputes, were now rallying behind Amy. Social media buzzed with messages of support, praise for her perseverance, and outrage at the attempt to take ownership of her recipes and personal history. The legal defeat forced Matt and Karen to reconsider their approach. Rumors suggest that private meetings were held to discuss damage control. One insider described the mood at the farm as tense and quiet, with an undercurrent of panic. They couldn't simply let Amy's victory stand without consequences. The perception of weakness could undermine the authority Matt and Karen had cultivated over years of family and business operations. But what options were left? Litigation had failed. Public opinion was against them. And more importantly, the evidence proving Amy's rightful ownership of her family recipes could not be disputed. In the days following the lawsuit, Amy and Chris reportedly took proactive steps to further protect her intellectual property. They began the process of registering the recipes under her name, securing copyrights for each unique dish. This legal move ensured that any future attempts by others to claim her work would face immediate legal resistance. Additionally, they reportedly included a detailed provenance of each recipe in the book's appendix, highlighting the origin of each dish and the family history tied to it. This not only strengthened her legal position but also added a sentimental value for fans who followed her journey from the early days on the farm to her independent success. Meanwhile, the emotional impact of the lawsuit on the family cannot be understated. Amy's 4 children were reportedly deeply affected by the conflict. They had grown up seeing their mother as a central figure in the farm's legacy, and now they witnessed firsthand an attempt to rewrite history and claim credit for her work. Sources close to the family said the children were devastated but proud when the recipe cards from 1975 were revealed, understanding that their family's traditions had survived the legal attack. The legal battle also highlighted an important lesson about the intersection of personal life and business. For years, the Roloff family had blurred the lines between their private experiences and the public brand of the farm and TV show. Meals made in the kitchen, holidays spent at the pumpkin patch, and personal stories were all part of the narrative presented to the public. The lawsuit demonstrated the danger of allowing personal history to be co-opted as a business asset and the lengths to which some individuals might go to monetize or control that history. Amy's proactive response not only safeguarded her recipes, but also set a precedent for how personal intellectual property could be defended, even in a family business context. As the dust settled, Amy reportedly focused on her book tour and public appearances. The initial shock of the lawsuit had been replaced with confidence and determination. She used interviews and social media platforms to share her story, emphasizing the importance of protecting one's personal history and celebrating the authenticity of family traditions. Fans resonated with her message, and pre-orders for the cookbook continued to rise, despite the legal drama. The narrative had shifted. Amy was no longer just Matt's ex-wife or a figure from a reality show. She was an entrepreneur, an author, and a custodian of her family's legacy. The response from Matt and Karen was reportedly muted. Publicly, they did not issue statements disputing Amy's claims, and insiders suggest that internally, there was frustration and disbelief. They had underestimated Amy's resilience and the thoroughness with which she and Chris had documented the origins of the recipes. The failure of the legal tactic left them with limited recourse. Any further attempts to challenge the book would risk drawing more public scrutiny and damaging the farm's brand, which had already faced criticism for past family disputes and management decisions. This episode also sparked wider discussions in the community about intellectual property rights within families, especially when personal creations intersect with business ventures. Lawyers, journalists, and fans debated the merits of the Roloff farm's claim versus Amy's evidence. Commentators highlighted how critical proper documentation, provenance, and legal registration can be in protecting personal creations, even in informal settings like family kitchens. Amy's success in proving her ownership became a case study in how to defend personal property rights against corporate or familial overreach. In the weeks following the lawsuit, Amy reportedly added a subtle but pointed acknowledgement in her cookbook. In a small, seemingly innocuous dedication, she thanked those who had helped preserve the recipes of our ancestors, a nod to her victory and the struggle to retain control over her family's history. Observant fans noticed the detail immediately, recognizing it as a clever and quiet assertion of autonomy and triumph over the legal threats. Looking forward, the Roloff family dynamics were forever altered by the lasagna lawsuit. Trust between certain family members had been eroded, and the lines between personal relationships and business were drawn more sharply than ever. Amy's victory empowered her, but it also served as a warning to others in the family about the consequences of attempting to claim ownership over personal legacies. For fans, it reinforced the importance of understanding the personal stories behind the TV show, rather than viewing the family purely as a business entity. The story also had ripple effects for Roloff Farms itself. The failed lawsuit, coupled with public support for Amy, may have influenced the farm's future decisions regarding public relations, branding, and family involvement. Internal discussions reportedly focused on how to prevent similar conflicts and how to navigate the intersection of reality TV fame, family legacy, and personal property rights. Amy's journey from being blindsided by the legal threat to triumphing with undeniable evidence demonstrates a combination of courage, strategy, and meticulous preparation. She preserved not only her recipes but also her identity, showing that personal history cannot be so easily co-opted or monetized without clear, documented proof. In the end, the lasagna lawsuit became more than a legal skirmish. It was a battle for family truth, personal legacy, and public perception. The conclusion of this chapter left Amy and Chris stronger and more unified, with a renewed focus on celebrating her family's history authentically. The recipes were safe, the cookbook launched successfully, and the fans were thrilled. Meanwhile, Matt and Karen were left to regroup, confronting the limits of their influence and the unexpected consequences of underestimating Amy's resolve. In the end, the lasagna lawsuit was not just about recipes or royalties. It was about family, identity, and the power of evidence. Amy's meticulous documentation turned what could have been a devastating blow into a resounding victory. The story serves as a reminder that knowledge, preparation, and persistence can overcome even the most audacious attempts to rewrite history. Amy preserved her past, secured her future, and reminded everyone that some things, like family recipes, belong to the people who created them, not to anyone trying to profit from their legacy. Her journey proves that even in a world where fame, money, and family intersect, truth and careful documentation are the ultimate defenses. Fans continue to celebrate Amy's victory, and her cookbook remains a testament to her resilience, creativity, and the unbreakable bond she has with her family's heritage. After the legal dust settled, Amy Roloff and Chris Merrick reportedly felt a sense of relief, but also a renewed vigilance. They knew that the battle over family legacy wasn't over just because this lawsuit failed. The way the case had unfolded exposed vulnerabilities that could resurface if the family dynamics weren't handled carefully. Amy had proven her ownership of the recipes, but the episode showed just how quickly personal history could be weaponized against her. She and Chris began planning for long-term protection, including registering copyrights for her recipes and documenting every new creation with detailed provenance notes. This way, any future disputes could be quickly dismissed before they gained traction. The ripple effects were felt beyond the Roloff household. Fans and followers of Little People Big World were outraged at the audacity of the lawsuit, flooding social media with support for Amy. Hashtags celebrating her victory trended for days, and many commentators drew attention to the broader implications for family-owned businesses and intellectual property rights. Legal experts appeared on talk shows and podcasts, discussing how ownership of personal creations like recipes or crafts can intersect with corporate claims when reality TV and public branding are involved. Amy's win became an example of how preparation and historical documentation can decisively counter corporate overreach. Meanwhile, insiders suggest that tensions at Roloff Farms were higher than ever. Matt Roloff and Karen Chandler reportedly had to confront the public backlash